Omar, how are you?
Hey, doing good. We got another green day, and Tesla's back in the top 10 list for most valuable companies on Earth. Next stop, number one.
That is awesome. Um, about Tesla, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. How is the FSD 12.4.3 rollout going?
Oh, it's still where it was on Sunday, so there were no new waves. Some customers are still getting the software as it, makes it way to them as they get to Wi-Fi and stuff. But as far as the rollout, as far as the targeted cars, there is pretty much no change since Sunday. So we had three waves, 2 waves on Friday, and then another much bigger wave on Sunday, and that's about it. So if everything goes well, we should see another wave. Maybe as early as today. If it doesn't happen, then it means that they found something that they want to look at, and think what they want to do. But right now we stand at around 1.2% of the total Tesla fleet targeted for this version. But if you look at just the eligible vehicles, it's about 4%. So it's not accurate.
Which one do you think?
approximately.
I mean, it's probably eligible vehicles that are more informative figure, right?
Yeah, so basically what I tend to look at is, first of all, I look at targeted vehicles, not the installations, because installations change like every hour. Someone is getting to Wi-Fi and starts loading the software. But the targeted number doesn't change much. It just comes in waves. And for example, at Tesla 5, you can look at it by just adding up the pending and as well as installed. So the total of those two numbers usually stays the same until there is a new wave coming out. And then, in addition, what I try to do is to look at filter out the cars that are not eligible. So, for example, first I look at just the portion of the fleet that is in U.S. and Canada, because that's the only countries so far eligible for the FSD. And also, it's a little so go by country and also by which version they currently have. So, for example, everyone on the 2024.20 branch is not currently eligible. So, and that's majority of the cars actually. So that's the biggest branch right now, and in fact, it's actively rolling out right now. So 2024.20.7 is seeing a big push this day. So it looks like they're moving everyone to that version, and it's worldwide, not just in the US. That's probably in preparation for the 2024.26, which is still being tested by employees, but may be released anytime, which has a bunch of new features. So that's a big update.
Okay,
that
let me ask you
everyone.
this.
Mhm.
Let me ask you this. When do you think the majority of eligible fleet will get 12.4.3?
Well, I don't think even Tesla knows. I mean, they probably want to do it as soon as possible, but it's
Well,
they're very cautious.
I'm asking you to kind of give us your best estimate based on your experience, expertise, your understanding of these things. I'm not asking you to be 100% accurate. I'm just asking you for your best estimate.
It's really hard. I mean, it's too much uncertainty. I think it will, if they don't find any issues, it will happen within the next week or two. But if they find some issues, they may decide to stop this rollout completely and wait for the next update. So who knows? I mean, it's just I think Omar can tell us better based on his experience with the new version how
Okay, thank
good
you.
it is.
Thank you for the update. I really appreciate it. And if anybody wants to understand these various versions, how the updates are rolling out, follow About Tesla. Good account. Uziobi, how are you?
I'm really jazzed up. Back from Italy. I've been missing the space. My brother finds you very funny, by the way. So
Oh, good. That's good. How
yes,
old is he?
26.
That's great. Hey, I posted at the top. By the way, Uzi, I appreciate all of your replies to my questions in the morning. It really helps a lot. I pinned at the top just a little contest among us. If you'd like to enter your estimate of how high the Tesla stock will go before 8.8, this is price is right rules. So highest without going over wins. So in a reply, you may submit your estimate. Omar?
Yeah, so just based off what I'm seeing with 1243, it looks pretty good. We've already had a month of kind of ironing out the kinks, and we've arrived at a pretty good place, which isn't to say that it's a perfect place, but there'll be a 1244, etc. So I would expect more updates to go out later today and throughout the week. And the earnings are in 2 weeks from now. By the end of earnings week, so let's say by that Friday, I would expect it to be on the majority of FSD cars at that point.
Got it. Thank you very much, Omar. All right, Uzi, what do you think about I know you're kind of following this stock quite a bit, and I think we need to be able to understand what drives the stock in all sorts of periods, whether it's long term, medium term, and I do want to kind of start understanding what drives the stock in the shorter term as well. I don't want to be just about 10, 20 years out. I don't want to be just about day trading. I think that we should be able to zoom in and out in this space. So Uzi, I know you follow the stock quite closely. What's your answer to the question at the top?
Well, for the long-term question, I think there's two run-ups. We're in the first part where Robotaxi is becoming material, or FSD, and then the second one will be Optimus. So there's a lot, great prospects in the future, even after this run-up. And then short-term, I think, you saw Korea. They said this is their largest holding, so that's one part into that. Then you're also seeing the hedge funds are getting burned on shorts. So when they cover, I think that accelerates our gains. So I think it's not just retail buying. I mean, if you're in this space, you've been buying the dip for the most part, and I've stopped buying because it's like I'm just taking gains now. I haven't sold. I'm just impressed with the run up. So I think it's like a coiled spring, and I'm waiting for consolidation. But people are behind the eight ball on this, and
Okay, but you didn't answer my question. So what's the answer to the question at the top?
How high? I mean, this is off the cuff, but I think like just below 300. If it breaks 300, I'd be really impressed. So maybe 280s, 290s.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Well, I mean, right now, as I posted at the top, the stock hit highest in 10 months. And 20 minutes before that was highest in 9 months. So it's moving up very, very fast. Omar, do you agree with kind of Uzi's take on it? Do you think it is a bit of a coiled spring unleashing? Do you think, I know you haven't, actually, you said, I asked you at what price would you stop buying today? And you said $1,500 per share. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, my price target for Tesla is around $2,000 a share. So I think if someone offered to sell me a share at 1,500 and I couldn't buy a share under 300 for some weird reason, then I could probably still make money on that.
Quite a few people are shorting the stock right now. The short interest has risen probably to above 4% by now. Some of the well-known accounts are shorting the stock as well. What do you say to them, Omar?
This is a mistake that so-called smart investors make all the time, where they think, oh, I really understand the financials. These people are all stupid. This company's a disaster. It's a fraud. It's going under. They're lying. And time again, this happens. And They say Tesla is the options market. The options volume on Tesla at times like this is just insane. And people go short and then they have to eventually cover as things start to get good. And it just exacerbates things in the other direction every time. As the stock goes up, more people are placing orders, more people are taking delivery. Then they have to close their position. That makes the stock go up more, which makes more people rich. They're then taking delivery, which is making more shorts cover. I mean, it's happened so many times historically at this point that you could write a textbook on it. And yet some of these guys never learn. I mean, the old guys like Jim Chanos, they've already shut down their fund. But then you got the new guys coming in, ready to make the same mistakes all over again as some traders who are honestly much smarter than them who failed at the same trade.
Uzi.
I think what Omar is describing with the stock going up and then deliveries going up, because I guess there's this FOMO element, is reflexivity, which basically means, as things go up, it becomes more desirable to buy it. It's really just FOMO. And I think it's actually different in Tesla's case because your shareholders tend to be the people that are buying the cars too. So there's actually a material effect on the stock price going up.
Well, people who buy the cars often tend to buy the stock because they fall in love with the product. So that's kind of a relationship that you don't see. And a lot of people who become investors also end up buying the car. So you don't see that in, say, Palantir or Nvidia. People who buy Nvidia stock don't necessarily go, "Hey, let me buy an H100 and keep it in my living room for $40,000." But with Tesla, you do have that effect. And it works both ways. When the stock fell and when vehicle prices fell, it affected existing owners' ability to buy a new Tesla.
Okay, great. Just a quick note that um, there's a bug going on in these spaces now. I can't see most of the people in this space. Most people show up as anonymous, as other listeners. So I can't send invites to speak. So if you want to speak, you have to request to speak. And more the merrier on the speaker board. All right, let's talk about let's zoom out to the longer term, look to Optimus. There's quite a bit of variance between people's understanding. Omar, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one more short term comment before we switch threads. So, I've always said that the rate cuts are really going to be the important backdrop and the important catalyst for Tesla to start to take off. And I think some of the Fed's comments with FOMC this week are potentially driving some of this price action. Powell says inflation is not the only risk we face. Powell says more good data would boost confidence on inflation. Powell says labor market is strong but not overheated. So he's making some kind of dovish comments there. He's saying, look, we also have risk of recession. These risks are also important in addition to inflation. I think he made one more comment. He said, easing too little or too late could unduly weaken the economy. So I think that's a pretty key comment. And really, I think this won't be said because the Fed is not supposed to be political. But I think there is also the backdrop that a high rate environment where people are feeling unhappy about the economy is more likely to result in a Republican victory. So I'm guessing at least some people on the FOMC, though they're not allowed to say it out loud, are thinking, okay, if we hold high for too long through November, are we possibly increasing the chance of a Trump victory? And so I think there will be a a desire, conscious or not, by the FOMC to cut ahead of that. And the futures markets are penciling in about a 70% chance of a September cut at this point.
I'll
So
take you up on that. That's a coffee bet.
you think so? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
I
have an
don't think I
opinion, but
don't.
I'll take it. Sure.
Yeah, so you're saying they will cut before elections? I don't think they will.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to take that bet.
All right.
I think there is a good chance we see a cut before
Yeah, I mean, you have
November.
the market. You have the market on your side.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a sure thing, but I feel comfortable taking that coffee bet.
Yeah. Alex, how are you? Alex, how are you?
Yeah, sorry, I'm on the laptop. Yeah, I'm doing good. I don't like these new lies you're peddling about, being bugs on X and you can't see people and you only see the people anonymously and yeah, I don't buy
Dude,
any
I'm
of that.
serious. I can show you the maybe Sierra can come up and back me up on this because she hosts spaces as well.
It's a conspiracy. I'm sure you
No,
wrote
seriously,
her in to back you on this. I don't believe
right now
any of it.
right now we have about 350 plus people in the space, and 300 of them show up as other listeners. It's really weird. I hate it. Hate it. Anyway,
Maybe it's you the problem because I both on iOS and like on my MacBook, it's showing everybody.
Omar is right now is a listener to me, and even though he
yeah,
can
I
speak.
know it's ridiculous. So let me see on my desktop. Oh yeah, actually on my desktop I can see everybody. Actually, no, I can see 100 people or so as speakers, and then 219 other listeners. So if you're on YouTube, you can see me checking this out. Anyway,
The same here.
and then Omar looks like he's raising his hand, which obviously is not true. It's so freaking weird. Anyway,
Yeah, Elon, if you're listening, what the hell? This app is so buggy. You launch rockets into space. My car is now driving me around, and yet we can't get this space to work. Like, what is going on here? You need to make a few key hires that can pay attention to these little details and fix these things. Please, we're all begging you. We're on this app all the time. Please hire someone to fix these little bugs. We're going nuts. I'm gonna
So
clip
I
that and
just
post it
joined
and
on
tag him.
iOS. I just joined on iOS, and there's like a 4-second delay between what's on OS and iOS. How is that even possible? How can we hold a conversation if some people have a 4-second delay compared to other? That's weird.
Well, the listeners are on a little bit of a delay.
No, but like I'm on stage, so I have my headphones and I have my notebook, and I have both. I'm in both spaces basically, and there's like a 4-second delay between what I'm hearing on my MacBook compared to what I'm hearing on my iPhone.
okay.
Anyway,
Yeah, because you're in listener
It's
mode on
wild.
one.
Anyway, yeah, it's wild. Omar, I replied to the space with the bet, and I did it under the macro analyst account. So that actually I need to do that. I need to redo that. Anyway, machine.
Did Alex just realize that there's a delay between speakers and listeners? Is that your first time, Alex? Your first time in Spaces?
Why did you scare him away, dude?
I like Alex though because, I like people who aren't too sensitive. And that's kind of you and Omar have lasted too. And as you know, basically so many people have left your spaces because they're just too sensitive, right? So it's a nice, great filter. So I'm sure he'll be back.
And I was talking to someone from Brazil yesterday, and I learned a few words. You want to hear it?
Com certeza.
Actually, Alex is coming up too. I have no idea what you said. I only know 3 words.
I said sure. With certainty, they say.
Oh my gosh, it doesn't work. I can't bring Alex. Oh, there we go. Alex, welcome.
Yeah, so I'm not scared. I was just like trying to leave one of the spaces and it actually kicked me out of both because the delay, and no, it's not a delay between the speakers and the listeners. Again, I was on the stage on both devices, and it's actually maybe more than 5-second delay. So I don't know how this works.
All right. Omar accepted the bet. I'm about to delete. Omar, hold on one second. It's a disaster. Hey, machine, why don't you talk for a little bit and rant about the stock price surging while you're not invested in it?
Well, this happens. It happened last year. The stock gets well ahead of itself. How much money this company's making. And if you look at our quarterly earnings right now, we're at say 50 to 60 cents a quarter, annualized at best $2.40 right now. And I think that will, of course, go up, especially with Tesla Energy. But we're looking at optimistically here, end of the year, maybe 70 to 80 cents a quarter, which annualized will get you about $3. So the stock currently, and somewhat forward earnings, like current to a little bit forward earnings, is operating at like a PE ratio of over 60 to 70. Excuse me, over 80.
Okay.
On current earnings, it's above 100. This is
All right.
There is no other stock in the world of a well-functioning company, not a startup, lots of money, that's operating with no growth and 100 PE ratio. And even if you give it some growth in the future, it would still be over an 80 PE.
Okay, so what do you think you should be trading at right now?
Well, I mean, there's no should, right? Everything's on different time frames. We value Robotaxis, Optimus, and all that. Like the hype, there's hype. This is a hype cycle.
What do you think is a fair value?
I mean, it's probably fairly traded around 180. Given it gets an advantage of PE over other companies.
While you drive, are you driving? Where are you driving? Are you driving to?
Yeah, I'm driving.
Popeyes?
No, I just got an appointment.
By the way, I was reviewing yesterday's space this morning while I type up my notes for patrons. And I noticed that you didn't actually answer the question about to what time you are pushing your Robotaxi prediction. So while you think about that, Xander, what do you think about this current stock price action?
Before we go to my thoughts, I didn't realize Gary Black had a voice changer and a burner account.
Listen, Gary Black's a schmuck. Okay, this guy's had 10 catalysts every month for the last 3 years. Tesla catalyst, this, and this. Pathetic.
So, Machine, can't the market be like looking forward to what Tesla grows into, and instead of looking at it as a mature company, you look at it as like the AI play that's completely undervalued?
Yeah, of course it can, right? And so you could totally rationalize that the stock would be valued this highly, and it just stays that high, right? Even if earnings are flat for a few years, if there's such high confidence in Robotaxis, for instance, or Optimus, that it could. But normally there's a lot of sentiment fluctuations, and it's acting more like a startup. And what happens in those environments is high volatility. So it could stay high, but in practice, you're probably going to get a significant dump after. There's just a lot of volatility in that sense.
Omar.
I feel like Machine is the world's worst trader, and he's just constantly losing money compared to if he had just bought and held shares. But really, the fundamental disagreement here is what are the future earnings? Machine expects the future earnings of the company to stay flat for years. I expect the future earnings of the company to be much higher than what people are expecting today. And I think you can see that in virtually every sector of the business, from energy to automotive to software. The margin's actually improving now. And as you look at Q3, I think they're going to be able to beat Q3 2023 very easily. So that's really the fundamental disagreement. I think the market's looking at this and they're realizing earnings expectations are actually too low.
Xander, what do you think?
I mean, I completely agree with Omar. It's to have this kind of move is obviously, Wall Street making a decision that they're going to go the other way now, right? They're missing the AI boat. Where are you going to bet on Nvidia, or are you going to look for the guy who's going to? Um, I get a phone call there. Probably broke up.
Xander, what do you think is the answer? What's your answer to the question at the top?
Before 80, how the stock price can go? So I think like at this 265, which is the previous high that we had before we had that drop to 100 or whatever it was, 140. So if we could break this before earnings, 300 is the next on deck. I don't think, if I was to guess, we take a breather here. And then after earnings, I think they'll surprise with energy revenue. So can it go to 300? I think so. But that's where I think going into the day, it's a possibility. Uh, I don't know what percentage I'd assign to it. Maybe 25%.
So your answer is 300? And it's really, I'm looking for 3 or 4 digits in the reply. Like I get a lot of replies to these questions where people don't answer the question.
Yeah, I think 300 is going into it. Afterwards, depends on what they announce.
Machine.
If the stock is at current level or above going into Robotaxi event, which I think is not that surprising, that if anyone would have asked last month, we would have said, oh yeah, there's going to be a pump into the Robotaxi event. Like, I don't think that would have been that surprising, especially after his comp plan was voted on through. I think it's going to be sell the news for sure on Robotaxi event after that.
See,
Edward.
Sorry,
Xander, go ahead. Xander, go ahead.
Yeah, I that's the part that I've been commenting that I disagree with. I think that we're so used to this buy the rumor, sell the news, and no one called this crazy pump up here. And so, is it possible that it continues the same way? Yes, but it's also possible that they announce something where Wall Street takes notice, right? If there's something that they can model, then they're going to look forward to earnings growth.
Edward and then Omar.
Yeah, I think historically, it's always been kind of, not always, but most of the time it's been a buy the hype, sell the news scenario for Tesla, which to me is mind boggling because I think I understand it quicker, but I think it takes people longer to process sometimes. It might take people 5 days or a week or a month to process what's really going on. But it can do the, what do you call it, like gap and go, meaning it could fire up and then just steadily go into the buy mode, which I would love to happen. But I might be on Machine's take on that it might be the buy the hype, sell the news scenario. I mean, I hope not. But
Omar.
So Machine says that he's not surprised that there's a run up into the hype of the Robotaxi event, and yet he didn't position himself for it. So he's not surprised, but he forgot to buy shares or calls. So kind of interesting there. Now, The market is a second order chaos. What does that mean? It means predictions about the market affect the market. So it's impossible to predict. So when everybody thinks they know something, usually the opposite happens. So when you hear everyone going, well, yeah, of course, to buy the rumor, sell the news, th- that may happen. I wouldn't be surprised, but it also may not happen, right? That's the unpredictability of the whole thing. And in markets where if, let's say everybody's expecting it to pull back, so they all start buying puts for after the event. And then you have kind of a gamma squeeze or something like that if it's not that bad and the stock actually does the opposite. So, I mean, to ask really what's the price action the next day going to be, who cares? People are stupid. They may or may not get it. If the stock goes up, great. If it goes down, I'll probably buy more shares because really what we're looking at here is them unveiling their first vehicle without any controls, the Tesla Cybercab. This is an incredibly revolutionary product that puts them on a path to being a multi-trillion-dollar company. If you're just thinking about the next day's price action and, oh, how did Elon look? How did Elon sound? What did the market say? What did people write the next day? You're really kind of missing the big picture of what is really driving to even today's price action, which is fundamentally this being a long-term growth story that's just getting started.
Machine.
So first of all, yeah, did I buy calls going into what I thought may be a pump? No, because I'm operating in a different world now, being more conservative, where I'm just like taking what's given. So if some stock's oversold, maybe I'll buy it, and if it's overbought, I may short it, and that's kind of it. So if it's in between, I'm not really going to mess with it, and that's kind of where I felt Tesla was around, 200. So yeah, no, am I a perfect trader? No. But have you guys? Is this your first day in Tesla world? You think the stock just goes up forever, or it just goes down forever? This stock was like before Nvidia was like the options market. Was the Tesla people buying and selling like crazy? This thing swinging back and forth like crazy, and every time there's some event, what happens is, to Alexander's point, absolutely, if something's unveiled that isn't priced in, absolutely it could go up further. But the problem is that people get so hyped up for the event, they're speculating that every possible thing can happen beforehand. Okay, so everything essentially was priced in, and then it could only disappoint. At best, it could satisfy. And so for this event, you have people talking about they're going to unveil a Robotaxi network. They're going to unveil it's already operating in some cities. And meanwhile, you have Omar here saying, no, the stock's just going up on fundamentals for long term. No, it's going up on hype. It's because Wall Street wants to pump it. Okay, and it's still going to come back down at some point. Maybe it goes up to 300 first and only comes down to 250, right? Who knows? But there's a pump and a dump always.
Omar.
Well, if you look at what really started this run, it was the production and deliveries report. So there was no mention of robotaxis in the report. There was no real robotaxi event. I mean, FSD 12.4 started rolling out, but nobody pays attention to that except us. So it was really the production and deliveries beat, the energy beat, I think, that really started driving this rally. And I think it is much more fundamentals driven than hype driven, as you suggest. I think obviously there is quite a bit of value priced into Tesla stock for all of those things, but you just, even if something's a great AI play, you don't want to buy into it when it's a story of year over year sales declines and margins contracting and earnings falling year over year. Ideally, you like to invest in growing companies. So to look up ahead and say, okay, they're now past this tough comp. They actually delivered a beat. It wasn't too bad. They had a big beat on energy, which is going to be somewhat material. And looking ahead, they have an easy comp on Q3. They're going to be able to deliver a beat. they may even be able to deliver a beat in Q4. We're now looking at this returning to a growth trajectory as rates are potentially easing, as they're also doing these breakthroughs in AI. Okay, this is a play that now looks much more attractive compared to when they were in a sort of margin contraction, volume contraction, year over year sales decline situation as they've been for the last couple quarters.
Edward, that machine.
Yeah, I have to agree with a lot of that. And I think that the compute power situation where I guess Elon was talking about how they're not computer restrained anymore for compute. So I think that was huge. I think that led to like a 12% day or something back even before all this kind of the numbers came in.
Machine.
Yeah, I feel like it's Omar's first day following Tesla price movement. And he's basically saying it was a bad time to buy at $140. It was a bad time because margins were shrinking, deliveries were going down, everyone was fearful. And he's trying to rationalize it that was a bad time. And now is a great time to buy because everything's going to go up. And that's not how it works, my friend. You're supposed to buy when other
Okay,
people are
machine.
fearful.
We have a question for you in YouTube live chat. Jake McCombs asks, are you going to short it if it hits 300?
Well, actually, I started shorting a little bit today. And if it hits 300, I will absolutely short it more.
Let me ask you something. So there is obviously in this community a very high level of hatred against short sellers. Are you feeling hated? And what do you say to that idea?
I mean, I think people hate me for many reasons, so it's hard to distinguish between which things. But in terms of short sellers, I have no problem with short sellers. Like any betting market, you have people on both sides. What I do have a problem with people trying to distort news. And particularly short sellers have historically done that, and I think that's unethical. But you can also have it on the longs too. People who are making boisterous ridiculous claims about future earnings growth, for instance. So I don't have a problem with it. Personally, my opinion, as I've said before, for Tesla stock in this period of time, is that I pick and choose acting like it's a swing trading because I think it's oscillating within a certain range until real progress on robotaxis happens. And as people have stated here, like Omar, the market responds to different things at different times, and they're not going to see real robotaxi progress when we do. So I think there'll be opportunities to buy in long at a more confident time at a reasonable price still ahead.
Xander.
Yeah, I think there's a distinction that should be drawn between people who short the stock versus buying puts, which I imagine Machine is just buying puts, which can be looked at more as insurance. But I think that we've been conditioned to.
Machine, does that describe you accurately, that you're just buying insurance?
No.
Okay, Xander, you want to continue?
Yeah, and it wasn't specific to Machine because I'll buy puts like going into production delivery numbers. I bought $1,000 of puts just as insurance that something will go up. Did they burn and I lose that 1,000? Yes, I did. So, which I was perfectly okay with. But what I was going to say is that we've been conditioned to sell the rip as an options trader, and while I'm making money in my trading account every day as this rip happens, by letting go of these call contracts that were some were 220 strikes to 240s 260s, it just keeps climbing. I'm leaving out the the real gains, the 2-3x gains on the trading account. And something that I've been waiting for is this moment where Wall Street goes the other way. You have a bull run, and you have analyst upgrades. And so at that time, just like on the way down, you have to, as a trader, obviously not investing advice, but for me, that's what I'm doing, is I'm trying to unlearn this new behavior that I had, and zoom out and look at the long term, which is kind of what Omar is saying. We're just at the beginning of this tremendous AI opportunity in Tesla. So it depending on what you're doing. If you think that long term this is going to play out the way that you think that it's going to play out, I'm personally adjusting my investment strategy.
Uzi.
I mean, if you look at what the lead up to this run up, there was the shareholder vote, and every day there was Ross Gerber on CNBC, Kogan Leo. That was nonstop drama, and I don't think Wall Street likes drama. And then once we beat deliveries, and you had Kathy Wood banging the drum, that helped. But I think the real person to look at is Ron Barron. He called the bottom, long-term investor, and sort of diamond hands. And when you have full conviction on a play, then you stick with it as long as possible and you trim. But I wouldn't doubt. And I think Machine provides great comedic relief to this space, so I appreciate it. And I appreciate him playing devil's advocate, because that's necessary without Grant.
Omar.
So I think Machine's really positioned in the wrong direction here. I think there's a chance this is a $300 stock in the near term, and he should probably be positioning himself long instead of short, honestly. I mean, there have been a lot of people who are great analysts, great investors, who really understand the fundamentals of a company, who've looked at Tesla and said, this thing should be priced at a much different level than where it is today. But Tesla is its own animal. There's only one Tesla in the world. This is one of the most followed, talked about companies on earth. People love their Tesla. They have emotional connection to Tesla. Many people have been made rich. People talk about it all over the world. Number one stock in Korea, huge in China, right? So trying to say I'm going to know what Tesla stock is going to do based on fundamentals has rarely been a sure thing. It's really its own animal. And many people have burned themselves going short because they think, it's a good trade. I mean, even shorting Rivian. Rivian has been jumping up too, as a sort of sympathy rally with Tesla, if you will, other EV stocks as well. Even though you could say it really has nothing to do with it, but I think Rivian's above $16 now. So I bought puts on Rivian. I lost money on that. It's just very hard to short a company when sentiment has already kind of bottomed.
Wes.
Hey guys, what's happening? Did I hear that Machine is shorting? Is that accurate? I missed that part.
Yeah, he started shorting his net short now.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm with Omar on that. I've been buy and hold investor in Tesla since 2017, and I've made many mistakes along the way. My biggest one is selling ever. But shorting this thing on the doorstep of FSD just sounds like not the best decision. I would definitely go long if not advice, but it's definitely the wrong play if you ask me.
Edward?
Yeah, I think there's stocks to trade and there's stocks to buy and hold. And Tesla isn't as it's a hard stock to trade versus just buy and hold and see where the future leads you to. Versus like, I mean, trading Rivian. I traded Rivian at 110 and sold at 130, but I was out when it started crashing and it's crashed from 160 down to 16. I mean, it's dead almost, you know.
Edward, so I was reviewing the answers to what's your expertise tweet. Got a bunch of replies actually in there. And yours is you're an entrepreneur, right? You built a
Yeah,
business.
yes, for the last 12 years.
That's awesome. Congratulations. You started with $2,000 and I built it into a $3 million sales overall company. That's great.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. It was one of those where I had a bunch of money from playing poker online for about 5 years. I was making six figures doing that. And then I was talking to my friend and I'm like, hey, what should I do? Should I invest in stuff? And that was right when the financial collapse was. So I wasn't going to jump back into Apple. And so I just kind of waited and started my own e-commerce business, you know, like eBay, Amazon, sales like that. And it just kind of took off to where I got kind of caught up in that and less in the market for a decade, basically.
That's great. And then when did you start buying Tesla stock?
Started buying when they went net positive earnings. I mean, that was like the big breakout. Once they broke out, I was like, wow, this company's profitable. It's go time. So I just dumped everything I possibly could get into it at the time. And then I had a good 10x run and bought a couple Teslas, literally paid for, Elon's basically bought me multiple Teslas and the house that we're living in.
Edward, your sound quality is a little low. I think your mic is rubbing up against something. Simon?
I apologize.
Simon?
Sure. So my view on this recent run, and it's tough to really time any stock in the market, but I've heard some comments, maybe it's a short squeeze. Not at all. There's just not enough of the stock that's shorted. And even if, and I've experienced or watched short squeeze before, and this is nothing close to a short squeeze. And I go to a club and there's a lot of institutional investors, hedge fund managers in the locker room. And we're talking about their portfolios and what they're doing. And the general take is that a lot of people, half of the crew has been under-owned tech or under-owned AI. And a big complaint money managers are having is that if they did not own NVIDIA, they got left in the dust and they're underperforming. And I suspect right now, because Tesla's been under-owned, a significant amount of Tesla shareholders are retail, and it's really under-owned on the institutional side. And I suspect that they're waking up to the fact that this is an AI play. It's being repriced as an AI company, and they just need to own it in the fund, not because they're extremely bullish, but they may have gotten left behind for not owning NVIDIA. And so they're just saying we need a market where this is institutional money buying in, not short covering.
How would you possibly know this is institutional money buying in?
It's too large. I'm looking at the daily volume. You're talking 150 million shares trading hands today.
Okay,
Current
so
volume.
You have some support for what you're saying, but you don't specifically know that this is institutional money buying in, right?
Correct. This is my suspicion.
Okay. Xander?
Sorry, chewing. So this, if you
don't
look
chew, Yaman hates chewing.
working on it.
Yeah. If you're eating,
I'm good.
No. If you're eating, you should be in listening mode. When you come up to speaker mode, you should stay on mute until I call on you. When you're not talking, you should stay on mute. And just kind of, imagine if you came up to CNBC interview, you wouldn't be, eating your sandwich. And I think it's very disrespectful of everybody in the space and the space itself. to be eating while you're on the speaker board. These are just basic, basic requirements from people, but for some reason, some people just can't respect them. Noah?
Electric just made a statement that Tesla insiders say that Elon for himself and Tesla influencers have optimized self-driving routes. What do you guys think about that?
Omar, what do you think?
I mean, it's bullshit. You can go try it anywhere yourself. There's no optimized routes. It just works anywhere. You can take it on routes you've never taken it on before, and it'll do well. So, Fred is a total, I want to watch my language. He often publishes information that's just completely wrong.
It's not easy to describe Fred with the criterias of this room's on language, honestly. It's like you should loosen it up a little bit.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Edward.
Yeah, from my experience on optimized routes, I mean, I take different routes and you can adjust it to take multiple routes every time that you take it on FSD. So I don't think it's optimizing anything unless it's just for your speed and traffic.
I mean, one test that I'll do that I've done in the past and that I should do again for this version is a real rideshare test where I just pick up real rideshare requests that come in. So the address is random. Nobody knows it ahead of time, including me. And you can see that even on those, it's able to do it with zero intervention. So, I mean, like, these sorts of accusations that everything's sort of fake is just ridiculous. This is not fake. This software is really here. It works even, throw any random address at it. It doesn't, only work on one road or something like some of the other products do.
WH. WH, you have to unmute yourself for us to hear you. Okay. Let's clean this up a little bit. We have a bear on the board. Bear on board. I'm going to announce bear on board now, just like baby on board. Bear on board. Grant?
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me? I've got a weird thing on my screen.
Oh, God.
I know you hate that. No, what I was going to say is there's no way that Tesla would ever do that. It's unimaginable that they would fake the status of a technology. It's not like anyone's ever testified under oath in a lawsuit that that's exactly what they did with the painted black video in 2016. These are crazy allegations that are unimaginable. It's not like we have knowledge that they've done this in the past. So anyone who thinks it's possible should definitely just ignore it.
Grant, are you net short right now?
Yes.
Okay, let's give a word to Omar, and then we'll get back to your stock price predictions, and then we're going to switch topics to longer term. Omar?
I was just in this space before this with people, Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer and another person who just bought their Tesla talking about FSD and how they love it, how it's really transformed their life. Michael Dell's using it. And you still have these shorts in denial arguing that it's fake, that it's not real. It's real. I mean, they point to this Paint It Black video as their holy grail. Oh my God, the Paint It Black video. The Paint It Black video is real. Literally, that car in that video can now run FSD 1243 and do exactly what that video shows. They actually made that real. They never said, hey, this is what's shipping today, right? The video was included in a blog post, right? People rarely include the blog post that had the video in it, where they said, we're now including autopilot hardware on our cars. This will one day allow the car to be able to do most of the driving itself. And here's a video showing what that might look like. The video was just demonstrating that the hardware was capable. They weren't claiming that the software was ready yet. They were just providing a demonstration. And several years later, they were able to deliver that. Over time, they delivered tons of features along the way, making the cars more powerful. The Paint It Black video is real today. And it's just funny that that's kind of the Bears' favorite argument to hang their hat on when they actually succeeded in making that vision a reality.
Brent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to debate point by point because I don't think that there's much use in it, but you use the language bears hanging their hat on it. I think that that video will likely be the thing that the DOJ hangs their hat on when it comes to the current criminal investigation into Tesla for wire and securities fraud. I mean, that is true today. You can say that, but it wasn't true then. It was not the representation that was made at that point. So that's one thing. And then separately, I would highlight that in all probability, if what the Business Insider article alleges is true, there's a good chance that Omar may be one of these drivers. So I just don't know that I'm going to take your word for it. I'm going to read the article and make my own decision. I don't think these people are all making these stories up, though. I'll say that.
We're 6.
Yeah, before Grant sucks all the air out of the room, I want to address something he said yesterday. Grant, you said yesterday that you have not noticed a significant change in interventions per mile with version 12. And I really wanted to say this to you to be helpful, but after that last comment, I'm gonna add one more piece. But 12.1 and 12.2 were not released. They didn't go wide release. It was only 12.3. And 12.3, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6 is really all we've had, most of us have had access to. And 12.3.6 is the best of that. You're not going to be able to tell or measure really anything until we get the best of 12.4. And that's really the best way, I think, for you to really determine what the progress looks like during the 12 period. The only thing I want to add to that is I think the comment that you made about you haven't seen, a lot of improvements, I think just speaks to the fact that you don't have FSD and you don't know these things. And so a lot of comments like the wire, the criminal investigation stuff that you keep throwing out, it bothers me because there's new people in here and folks that are, considering investing in Tesla, or maybe they're new to Tesla, and you say just some stuff that's just like way out there. And I think with your lack of general knowledge, and you point to articles of clickbait articles that are really designed to attract or make money, if you will, as the basis of your knowledge, it's just, I don't know, it really detracts from the room, if you will. So just some thoughts on that.
Well, I'll decide. I have to handle all that stuff. Just focus on Tesla-related discussions, please. Don't make it personal. Omar?
So, Grant, you've had this thesis for some time. I think you went short at around 220 or something like that, where you said there would be a massive regulatory fallout, FSD would be banned, and that was sort of your short thesis around the stock. How long has it been then, and have you sort of revised your estimates at all, or your thoughts on your thesis as you've seen that FSDs continue to roll out, that it's even gone hands-free, and that there hasn't been this sort of major regulatory event that you were predicting?
Yeah, I'm going to try to be quick and respond to a handful of things here. So first, Wes, I've used FSD. I don't have the level of knowledge that you do. I haven't been using it on an ongoing basis. When I do look at the trends in terms of miles per disengagement on FSD beta tracker, you can argue it's a small sample size, but it was higher for 12.3.3 than it was for 12.3.6. So, I mean, I'm using the best data that I have available to make that comment, and it's factual based on the data contained in that dashboard. Regarding the wire fraud and securities fraud, those are facts. You should Google it. The New York Times, I mean, that got a lot of media coverage. That's just a fact. I'm not making that up. That's not me supposing anything. The company is under criminal investigation for wire fraud and securities fraud. That's not me making it up. You should Google it if you're not aware of it. Omar, to your point, yes, I definitely thought that would happen sooner rather than later. But I mean, the bet has missed on the basis of it taking longer than I've expected. I don't think that it's not an issue at this point. I think that it is tough with a criminal investigation in an election year. It is the sort of thing that Elon's positioned himself to be perceived as a political victim of these things. I think the California DMV is actually having a hearing the day after the Robotaxi unveil to begin moving towards basically making it illegal for Tesla to label these products autopilot and FSD on the basis that they're deceptive and dangerous. So I do think regulatory interventions will be an issue for the stock going forward. I haven't lost that conviction.
No hands mode, Omar.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's really tough to bring a wire fraud charge when the technology actually works. In a case like the Ranos, where the technology doesn't work, okay, you've got a good case there. It's difficult. I mean, there was a New York Times article about this, but no charges have been brought. No wrongdoing has been alleged. If there was a charge, they'd have to bring the charge forward, indict them, and then there would be a case to determine whether they were guilty or not. As we know, there's been a lot of coverage about numerous investigations into Musk companies, whether it's the FTC and X, SpaceX, Tesla. This doesn't necessarily mean that a charge is going to be brought. And I think Grant is going to be really disappointed by his hopes that there's some big regulatory fallout. I mean, by all indications, this administration is on the way out anyway. So I don't really see it happening. I think really when you look at the technology and you look at the number of crashes it's preventing every day, these guys are national heroes, every single person on this team who's bringing this technology to market, who's packaging it in a way that it can be brought to the mass market. NHTSA understands this, regulators understand this, and I think they're going to really appreciate what they've done here. This idea that they're frauds and they're lying is just a sort of short seller's view on it and not well grounded in reality from my perspective.
Well, the basic issue here, Omar, is that the tech doesn't do what Elon said it would do. They can't drive themselves. Like the cars cannot drive themselves. I know you're like, oh yeah, they can. They're not robotaxis. They are not L4 autonomous. They can't start in LA and go to New York. There's like a very long history of things that Elon said these cars would be able to do that they cannot do today. I don't care what you say. That is a fact.
Well, they can do all of those things. It is level 4. You can send it out.
It's not an L4 piece of technology.
I mean,
Omar. Stop
even
lying.
the bears like Dan O'Dowd and others admit it's a level 4 system. You can send it out. You can turn off the nag, and it can drive across the country. Now, what's the rate of interventions? Is it going to crash along the way? That's a different story. But from a software perspective, it can actually do all of those things. It can do drives without the human doing anything. It can even do a drive without the human in the car. So your bearishness is not in tune with the reality of what's actually shipping to customers' cars. And you can say it's fake, it's a lie. Go listen to that Wolf space. It was an hour-long space. Hear from Kevin O'Connor, hear from these other people who are trying FSD for the first time. This is a real thing, as much as you want to pretend it isn't.
Grant.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone furrowed their brow upon learning that Tesla's FSD as it exists today is L4, that's because Omar is lying to you. I don't feel like arguing it. It's a lie. I think most people actually understand that it's a lie. Yaman, I think it would be noble of you to acknowledge that that's a lie. Your call if you want to allow that to be said in this space.
Dude,
but
I don't have time for this nonsense. This is
it's
wrong.
And your mouth
important.
is dry. Are you nervous or something,
I don't have
Grant?
time for
Your
drama.
mouth sounds very dry.
That's the important topic, right? Whether or
Well,
not my mouth
I
is dry,
sense
not whether
fear
or
in
not
your
it's
voice
L4
and
tech.
anxiety. So I'm just concerned.
Okay. Are you concerned that Omar's calling it L4 when it's not?
No, not at all.
You think it's
And my
L4
mouth
too?
is very moist.
You think it's L4 technology today?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, cool. Well, if anyone's in the room wondering if that's true or not, and maybe, questioning whether you should be spending time getting information from these sources, that's your call.
Okay.
Yeah, the guy
Edward,
testing FSD all the time is a bad source of information, sure. And the guy not doing it is the better source. Of course, makes sense.
Edward.
Yeah, it's L4 to me. The first time I drove the 12.3.6 and I drove it miles and miles around, I literally didn't even put a destination in, and it took me like 2 hours away, and I was like, man, they solved it. I'm like, it's over. It's just a matter of time as they fine tune it. I mean, you can say level 3, level 4, level 5. It's basically solved. They just have to fine tune it at this point.
Jimmy.
Yeah, I think where the confusion lays is I think Omar, and I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, this is just my opinion on his take. The system and the software as it stands today is probably a level 4, but there's so much security and safety in Measure that we treat it as a level 2. And as it keeps getting updates, it does keep getting better and better, but there are interventions. And now what we need to do is we need to solve those interventions before we can remove the safety of the driver from the vehicle. So I do on paper see it as a level 4 system, but because of all the regulations and restrictions and the unknowns, it is a level 2 system today out of the paper.
Alejandro.
Yes, a couple of things that surprised me. The company is not stating that today is level 4. It states that it's level 2. It drives like a level 4, and I would agree with that. I would have it for 3 years, and especially with 12.36, it's quite there in the behavior case. The other point is about this calling it autopilot, and that the company cannot be calling it autopilot. I don't quite understand that at all. I mean, autopilot have existed on planes for like half a century, and there is still interventions that and supervision that needs to take place. Nobody calls them and say you have to stop calling it autopilot because it doesn't taxi, it doesn't take off and land on its own. So that part to me, it's kind of hypocritical. And with regards to the not being officially legally level 4 by the company in today, nobody said that it will be level 4 today. They said it will, and Grant had used that word will, and will means in the future. And by the grade of the improvement that I have personally seen, I have zero doubt that they will actually make it level 4 legally. So that was my take.
Omar.
So, Grant, as usual, is completely misinformed, has no clue what he's talking about, and doesn't really understand what SAE level 4 is. So, I'm really quoting the FSD haters here. Dan O'Dowd says, for example, Tesla full self driving is level 4. It's in the name. Elon Musk, Omar's blog, and YouTubers have their hands off the wheel and feet off the pedals for an hour as FSD drives them through a city. How is that not autonomous? This isn't from some delusional bull. This is from the biggest FSD detractor who spent millions of dollars to get it off. And by the way, who is the CEO of an automotive supplier and would know what's SAE level 2 and what's SAE level 4. While it's true that, of course, the system is packaged as an SAE level 2 system that requires supervision, you could easily just turn off the cabin camera just as they've turned off the NAG, and it would then be a level 4 system. The only reason it's sold as a level 2 system is because we need the human supervision while it's still being validated. Once you're confident enough that the error rate of the system is sufficiently low, you just turn off the cabin camera and it's a level 4 system. So that's Dan O'Dowd. He also had a quote on the space. I can just play that right here. It's a 30-second clip. Maybe even 99% of the time. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure does well. It does work. I mean, people say it works 95% of the time. I'd say, yep, definitely. Maybe even 99% of the time. I don't know. I mean, I'm sort of picking numbers up, but you can drive several miles and it doesn't do anything really dumb. And FSD does recognize stop signs almost always. In fact, interestingly, this was the first time we've ever seen it not. We've been driving around for a month and here. So this was the first time you've ever seen it not respond. Wow. Stop sign. That's right. It's level 4. And right now. And, I think Philip Koopman and some other, detractors have really said, look, if the design intent for Tesla FSD feature is to eventually operate without a human being, per SAE J3016, that makes it SAE level 4. Even if today a human driver is required to ensure safety during beta testing. That's the same concept that applies to all other L4 testers out there. Either you're deploying an L2 feature or you're testing an L4 feature. Tesla tells regulators they're SAE level 2, which avoids level 4 testing regulations. But an argument can be made based on public statements that their final production design intent for these vehicles is a no driver needed vehicle at SAE level 4 or better. Consider the use of the name full self-driving as a feature, and some promotional videos and forward-looking statements about robotaxis. Sure, FSD instructions say that a human driver needs to pay attention at all times, but that's true of both L2 production vehicles and L4 test vehicles. So this is a guy, I think he has a PhD, he's an expert in the field. These guys are calling it a level 4 intent system, even though it's sort of packaged as a level 2 today.
Grant.
Yeah, I'm not really going to debate it. I mean, I'm just going to say.
Well, you called me a liar.
Well, I do believe you're a liar, but I came into the space hoping to have fact-based discussions around these things. I'm going to go. I'm not going to try to convince you guys it's not L4. Tesla doesn't think it's L4. Basically, no one thinks it's L4. I have been hopeful in coming into the space we could have fact-based discussions, and I'll let you guys sit around and talk about how it's L5 and the stock's going to $1,000 a share. I'm just going to leave, but have a good one.
Okay. Let's talk about other things. Let's see.
Oh, can't we dwell on this a little bit? Give us a little bit of fun. Like, look, the audience is approving. Come on. Well, this is what happens with bears. Like you destroy them with facts, and then like their mouth gets dry because they're anxious, they're nervous because maybe they have a short position. And then when you dump even more facts, then they just leave. Like, like the kid, that takes the ball and I'm gonna go home and nobody else can play instead of continue discussing. I don't know. It's pretty childish.
I mean, Grant might need to get on the foldable phone train so he can have X on one side and facts pulled up on the other side, or just a computer in general. That might help him.
Oh, can I ask Omar a question? How many miles on FSD do you have you logged, like total, since you started testing it?
More than 100,000.
Okay.
I mean, I now have more than 1,000 drives posted on my YouTube channel. I've literally seen everything.
Well, there you go. Next time, maybe we should ask Grant how many miles he has.
I mean, he has a few, but yeah, I mean, I think it's really difficult to argue this is a fraud. It's not. It's real.
Bull.
Hey, Omar, can you just define how NHTSA defines L4? We use a lot of terms. I'm not sure everybody knows what that means.
I mean, just think about it as supervised or unsupervised. So right now it's supervised. That means it's level 2. FSD unsupervised, no attention required, no driver required eventually, that's going to be level 4, level 5. So supervised, unsupervised, that's what really matters. Right now,
And
we're still in supervised. Once we're good enough, unsupervised launches.
And Omar, I think the big distinction is L4 is within a defined area, like a geofenced area. So you can have an autonomous vehicle drive the same loop in a circle on a couple streets in front of business buildings all day long, and that's L4. Well, I mean, that you've shown the technology can clearly do that. So L4 is not drive everywhere, but it's within a geofenced location, right?
No, I mean, there is no geofence required by the technology. Right? This is essentially really reaching into level 5 territory, right? So, I mean, you have obviously probably a weather envelope that it works in. The conditions have to be acceptable. But within that envelope of acceptable conditions, you can potentially really drive anywhere with this technology, up a mountain, across the highway, whatever. So we're really looking at the first generalized level 5 like system on a car you can buy that's actually affordable for an ordinary consumer. And a lot of people don't get that. They think, oh, well, we already have self-driving cars. No, this is very different than what we have. This is going to bring self-driving to the masses, to the entire country, not just some neighborhood of San Francisco. I mean, they may choose to launch it in, let's say, some city first in Arizona or Nevada to first, start trying it out. But the technology does not have those restrictions the way some of the previous approaches like Waymo's have.
Yeah, last thing. I totally agree. That's what Tesla's doing. Just, I want to read from the NHTSA website for people that don't know. Level 4, it says the system can only operate the vehicle in a limited service area. So, in other words, my point is Tesla can do L4 if they just change the software slightly now if they want to. That's my point. Thanks, guys.
Hi, guys. Has anyone seen Grant's short position to verify his short?
Who cares? Silver Spider.
Yeah, hey guys. Yeah, I find it really interesting listening to some of these conversations because they just seem so crazy to me. I just want to say, give you, my sort of background and interest in this. I bought a Tesla Model S in 2018 with FSD, with full FSD. And at the time, FSD was not even out yet on the Tesla cars. But then it started to come out. I even had an upgrade on the hardware. And I've seen it progressively get better and better and better. And quite honestly, it's so good right now. And I don't even have the 12.4 yet. It's so good right now. In fact, my wife is not even, afraid of me driving with it on nowadays. But it's so good now that I think all the difficult things have already been done. Yeah, there's still a bunch of stuff that it can't do, but the difficult stuff has been sorted out. The sort of things it can't figure out is, how to go through a gate, how to deal with the multi-dimensional stuff in Chicago where you got undergrounds and above grounds. But the real difficult stuff, going around cyclists, going around pedestrians, finding its way through, it's practically solved. I don't know how long it's going to take care of this other stuff. But as far as I can tell, none of those should be a permanent sort of barrier to any of that.
Edward.
Yeah, it's back to the geofence type of thing. I didn't understand exactly. I mean, are the companies basically geofencing because they have to, because the technology is not capable of anything without the HD maps and LiDAR and radar and everything?
Six.
Yeah, I just want to point out an observation. It seems like the only time we talk about the autonomous levels is whenever Grant brings it up. It's just not something that we frequently talk about in this space. And find it interesting. We go into these rabbit holes for a period of
Wes,
time.
why are you making it personal? I really don't appreciate this at all.
I don't feel like I'm making it.
You are making it personal. You can't
How
say
so?
it in terms. You can't say it in terms of, I don't think we should focus on levels. Instead, what you're saying is the only time we talk about is when Grant is up. That is making it personal, and I don't appreciate that.
Well, I think you're taking it the wrong way, or maybe I am saying it the wrong way. So I'll certainly think about that. But it's accurate, and I speak with Grant. I jump into his spaces. I'm a speaker sometimes in the TSLA cube spaces. So he and I, we've had quite a few chats before. I'm not saying it like I'm going at Grant, but just an accurate statement.
It may be inaccurate. It's just not. It doesn't belong in this space. So we try not to make things personal here. We only try to talk about Tesla. If you have any personal drama with anybody, you can take it outside. But not in here. Omar?
Yeah, I do agree with Wes that the SAE levels are kind of useless. The old saying, you're not going to get to the right answer if you ask the wrong questions, definitely applies to SAE levels. I mean, many automakers like Mercedes, they ask themselves, okay, how do we get to the next SAE level? Like it's a video game. How do we get to level 3? How do we get to level 4? And then they ship these sort of traffic jam, assist features and spend time working on that, a traffic jam assist with LiDAR, just so they can claim, oh, okay, we're first to level 3 or we're first to this level. Meanwhile, the feature itself is useless. So I don't think the SAE levels are particularly helpful. I think it's just helpful to think about supervised and unsupervised.
Thank you. All right. So Omar, at the top is a clip from Autonomy Day back in April 2019, when Elon said the two main crutches that should not be used and will in retrospect be obviously false and foolish are LiDAR and HD maps. Mark my words. And I posted this because Sawyer posted yesterday, Chinese EV maker Fang new model due in Q4 will ditch LiDAR, proving Elon right. But in some of the replies below that tweet, people are pointing out, well, look at the fact that Waymo currently has robotaxis in San Francisco, and Waymo now offers robotaxi service to 24/7 in all weather conditions across San Francisco. You don't have to sign up for a wait sheet or anything like that. So it's literally available to anyone in SF today. And they use HD maps, and Tesla does not have a robotaxi service. And people in the replies are claiming that's because Tesla doesn't use HD maps. What do you say to those replies?
Well, I think that they do have a point to some extent. A pure vision robotaxi has never been demonstrated in the wild before. So I believe Tesla will be the first to demonstrate it, but it hasn't been demonstrated yet. And Waymo is very technically impressive. What can I say? You get in, it works every single time. You can call one within a few minutes. I love using it, it's great. But it really is relying on that HD map and the ability of the LiDAR to help it localize its position on that map within a few centimeters. And this is really the key to how it performs so well and how it's so reliable. Because with Tesla, there's all kinds of things that the system has to do. It has to look at the road and figure out, okay, what does the road look like? Where am I? What are the road boundaries? It's doing that all with vision. In many cases, it can't actually see where the curb is. It has to kind of infer where it thinks it would be. So all that stuff has to be generated by the neural networks in real time. Versus with Waymo, they already have all the answers. They already know where exactly the curb is, where exactly the road boundary is. They can pick an optimized route that has the lowest number of interventions, and so on and so forth. So the key that's allowed them to really offer driverless, not to put down the impressiveness of it, is a little bit of a crutch, in the sense that if you want to expand to being able to go to all the places people want to go, not just within San Francisco, but People in San Francisco sometimes want to go to Berkeley. Sometimes they want to go to San Jose. Sometimes they want to go to Napa, right? So you need to go to all those places to replace Uber and replace their car. And the very thing that helped get them there first is now actually going to slow them down. And I can tell you the rate of progress in Waymo's driving is not that noticeable. It's been pretty constant since I started using it. Whereas FSD is just sort of starting to leapfrog it with the pure vision based approach. So I think a lot of people are going to end up going the XPeng route and following what they're doing and move to a pure vision based solution. Especially when you're focused on mass production like XPeng is, it's just a clear winner. Now, Waymo can afford to burn billions of dollars for a few more years running this Robotaxi service just to be able to say, hey, we're the first. But once someone else starts offering driverless rides and they're profitable, how do you think they respond? What's the willingness of investors to continue to burn billions, and how do they sort of turn that operation around? Do they move to pure vision? I'm not really sure. So my focus is really on making money. I don't even care about robotaxis. I just care about making money. I just want the business to make money so that it can continue working on this stuff. So whether they're selling supervised or selling robotaxi, the company that's financially stable is the one that'll eventually survive and grow to dominate this market. It may take longer than we hope or expect. And solvency is really going to be a key determinant, I think, in who ends up being in a dominant position here.
How certain are you that Waymo is losing money today?
80% certain. I think they do share their information. Google's a publicly traded company, so they do share some numbers in their public filings. I'd have to go check what the most recent numbers are, but my last memory is it's somewhere in the order of $2 billion in losses a year.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna take a look at that tonight, and then maybe we can discuss that a little bit more tomorrow. Waymo is really impressive. I mean, they've proven to be way more capable than anyone else who followed that approach, LiDAR plus HD maps, and many have. I mean, there are literally dozens of companies that do the same thing, but Waymo has been the only one that really is able to do what they do today by far, by a long mile, which is amazing. So maybe we should look into that company a bit more, and I'll see if I can find
It's
anything on the
Google.
financials. Yeah, exactly.
Google engineers best in the world.
Yeah. Uzi?
I'd also like to put forth that the state-by-state regulation on behalf of Waymo ultimately will benefit Tesla. And so every new state that Waymo takes is, I view as, bullish for us, because that will just make robotaxis less controversial.
Yeah, the amount of learnings we are getting from these deployments as an industry, the amount of regulatory pavement that's going on, where processes are being established, where first responders know how to act, it's really incredibly valuable for the whole industry.
Edward.
Yeah, I'm not aware if Waymo is expanding to any other cities, or is that just going to make their cash burn even higher if they are losing a bunch of billions off of it? Does anybody know anything?
They are expanding to new cities. Right now, they are in Phoenix, available to the public. They're now open to the public in San Francisco. In Los Angeles, they're still invite only. And I think Austin, Texas is in an invite only phase. And there may be one other city, I think maybe somewhere in the South or something like that. But they are expanding, not expanding rapidly, but they are expanding gradually.
Yeah, and I would expect that speed to increase when they start producing their purpose-built robotaxi.
Yeah, that's a much lower cost vehicle than the Jaguar I-Paces they've been using, which are also going out of production. And those don't have any steering wheel or pedals. So assuming NHTSA grants them an exemption, it's going to be really cool to see a vehicle without any manual controls on the road that you can actually ride in. And there's, I think, Zeekr, which is a subsidiary of Geely, is going to be making those. It was supposed to be a huge cost savings for them on the vehicle, but now that there's a 100% tariff, that's going to make it a little more expensive, but honestly, probably still cheaper than the I-Paces.
I'm going to go to Uzi next, but before that, quick reminder to please like, reply, and repost the tweets at the top. It's really helpful when people reply to the questions I ask. It allows me to understand where everyone stands. It informs the debates that we have in this space. It also supports the space in terms of ad revenue share. So please go up, like, repost, and reply to the tweets at the top. Uzi.
Well, I first want to say absolutely reply at the very least, and like, because it's like the space on go, and then everyone in this space is already replying anyway, so it just adds more value to the conversation. And then on top of that, I do think like Tesla is the most vertically integrated car manufacturer, and we'll see that with Robotaxi, and it's all in house. But the partnerships that Google has to go through, or Waymo, I think that will slow down the progress. So ultimately, what Google will do is sort of pave the infrastructure or regulatory infrastructure state by state, whereas Robotaxi will, because the technology is also just superior with vision, it will be much I guess the adoption and growth will be much faster.
Humanities.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't expect to be calling in so soon. So anyway, I have a question for the cyber cab. I understand Waymo's great. I also understand it's limited and it's a little difficult to scale. I'm wondering what the panel thinks in regards to the cyber cab coming out with the ability of existing car owners to eventually be able to enroll their vehicles into the cab mechanism. This is to me, it's going to have a dramatic impact financially on the ability of Waymo to operate competitively. What are your thoughts on that?
Omar.
So first, I just wanted to say that I believe that Waymo is eventually going to move to pure vision as well. So they've got really great AI engineers. They have some of the top-notch people working on Gemini. These LLMs are gaining incredible vision capabilities, where you can ask them like, "Hey, what's on my breakfast table and how do you cook it?" And it can actually like look at it and say, "Oh, that's oatmeal, that's toast." So they're gaining really incredible vision capabilities. And what I would expect the Google engineers to be doing in a Skunkworks project is to be having a vision model that can drive the car and just comparing it to the LiDAR output, right? Sort of have it run in shadow mode, so to speak. And when they can see that the output of the vision only model is as good as with the LiDAR, then they can just remove it. And then they would have the ability to scale much more rapidly. You have the ability to maybe be less dependent on HD maps. You can kind of train on what the LiDAR system outputs and then just learn to do it without it, just like Tesla's done with the pure vision system. So I do think that we'll eventually see a pure vision system from Waymo. But then, you asked about the cyber cab. Sorry, what was your question again?
Well, it's how are they going to remain competitive when?
Oh yeah. Okay. So
yeah.
I mean, I don't think that it's a little bit far out to speculate on the competitiveness of Cybercab and Waymo until we have more concrete details about Cybercab actually entering any of the markets Waymo's in driverlessly. But theoretically, if you can achieve a lower cost per mile and you can offer lower prices and you can offer a drive that's just as good or better, then you would be able to compete very well. But again, all a lot of hypotheticals at this point, but we could see it come to fruition. I think they've kind of got the market cornered for now. I don't see anybody really entering the driverless space at the scale that that they're at anytime soon until maybe Tesla enters the market. And in terms of the cybercab, you'll be able to have your own vehicles give rides. The cybercab is really about the lowest cost per mile, handling most of those 1 or 2 passenger rides. People will still call a Model 3 or a Model Y if it's closer, or if they need to take, let's say, 3 to 5 people or have a lot of stuff in the trunk, they might call that instead of a cybercab. So I think all the vehicles will be able to be robotaxis, each model, but the cybercab is really just focused on that lowest cost per mile. And I think that's where Tesla really has the chance to outcompete everyone else is if they can deliver an integrated solution from top to bottom, from the vehicle design to the inference computer to the battery that just delivers the absolute lowest cost per mile, then that's ultimately what will win in the marketplace.
Omar, we have a question for you from YouTube live chat from Kevin King. The question goes, if HD Maps is so good, why did a Waymo get caught driving on the wrong side of the road a couple of days ago?
Well, Waymo said that there were some obstacles on the side of the road. It went to that side of the road to go around something and it couldn't get back. So it ended up kind of driving on the wrong side of the road for like 30 seconds. That was obviously an embarrassing incident for them. But, that's just kind of how the computer works. There was also another incident where the HD map was slightly incorrect about the boundaries of the road, and the Waymo crashed into a pole because of that incorrect HD map. So you can really see the danger of over relying on this HD map where you have all these sensors on the car, way more sensors than a Tesla. You got the cameras, you got LiDAR, you got radar, and you still drive straight into a pole because the map told you to. So, the map should be a suggestion, but you want to really base things off your own eyes and ears and make that number one, obviously.
Jimmy.
Yeah, does anybody have the data on single, double, triple, quadruple passengers for like any rideshare company? Because I mean, if you want the lowest cost per mile, you make a 4-door car. You don't make a 2-seater. And then, I mean, we have to find those numbers out first. Like, are more people actually Ubering just individually, or are they doing it in groups? It also opens up the question to, what if I want to bring a bunch of stuff? Like, I just went to the Home Depot, and guess what? I threw my stuff in the trunk, and I threw it in the front, and I threw it in the back seat because I don't have enough room. And a 2-seater, how much space do I get? Because I would love to take a Robotaxi that can occupy
Yeah,
4
there's gonna be
occupants.
various. I mean, we have only 20 minutes left, so the last few
I'm
minutes of
sorry.
the space should be very pointed, specific questions instead of kind of trying to open up this big topic. Okay, we can discuss another day. Let's go to Clear as Mud.
Hi. So, longtime investor and user, fully believe that FSD, will be level 4. The question is, when Tesla is ready to release it to customers, let's say Robotaxi is one thing, they cover the insurance, they get, approval. What happens when they want to release it to customers? Is it all federal approval that's needed, or are there state by state, approvals
It's
needed?
going to be state by state, probably. Omar, I mean, does anyone
And
disagree?
insurance,
with
right?
the
Like, won't
state?
insurance carriers need to approve covering a vehicle that's level 4?
There's Tesla insurance, dude.
Not everywhere. That's my point, right? I'm
Okay,
here
Omar,
for
what do you think?
for the money.
Omar,
Sorry, what was the question?
do you think we're going to roll out federal first with the federal approval nationwide or state by state? And what about insurance approvals where there is no Tesla insurance today?
Today, the regulatory framework for autonomy is all at the state level. So, under the current framework, it would roll out state by state. unless we had federal legislation that was passed, but Congress is, they're not passing anything. So I don't necessarily see that happening. It'll probably be on a state by state basis at first.
Yeah, and maybe if there's a red wave and they all love the Cybertruck and Elon's tweets, maybe they'll give us a federal approval. Who knows? Wessex.
Hey, Omar, you said a few weeks ago that Waymo has about 600 something vehicles in its entire fleet. I thought that was really interesting. And after that comment, I went and looked at the map of San Francisco in terms of their coverage or the area that they work in. Do you know how many they have in San Francisco, and also approximately what the size is of their kind of workable space, if you will?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, in San Francisco in particular, Waymo, I'm wondering if you know how many vehicles are operating in that area, and also
I think
kind of
around
what
600.
in San Francisco.
Yeah, their recall notice recently had about 600 vehicles in it. So I think it's 600 vehicles total across all their locations.
And the second part of that is, do you know how big that geographical area is that they operate within in San Francisco?
It's the entire city of San Francisco.
Thanks.
Edward.
Yeah, quick question for Omar. Do you think Uber and Lyft are going to have a positive or negative impact based on this, or are they going to work together with Tesla in any way with Robotaxi?
Well, Tesla said they wanted to create their own rideshare network. So autonomy could be very good for these companies, or it could bankrupt them, depending on how well they're able to capitalize on it. So we'll see how it turns out.
Uzi.
I think at best they turn into like buyers of robotaxis. Like they don't own the cars. I mean, they have independent contractors, so it's an existential threat to their business, and I think they're planning accordingly.
Cledo.
Hey, I was just I messaged James Dauma yesterday about his thoughts on Waymo expanding and changing direction into a vision-only approach, and just kind of curious your thoughts on if they're able to operate a vision-only kind of in the background. He's saying it would take 20 billion a year all in, and it would take them 5 years to reach it if they were all in. So I'm just kind of curious if you think that they could actually run that vision only in the background and slowly transition, or if they need to go all in.
Omar.
Yeah, it could be instituted kind of gradually. We'd have to see. It would be a tough transition for sure, but it's manageable. I think they could pull it off if they really wanted to. The benefits would be pretty huge.
Crunch. Humanity.
Sorry, I had to turn my Bluetooth
Okay,
off.
go ahead.
Omar, in that Waymo incident, did they flash an SOS or some other perhaps NTHSA required alarm while they're going down the street the wrong way with their headlights? Thanks. Did you guys hear that? Or maybe they didn't.
Humanities.
Yeah, Lyft, Uber cab companies, do you think they'll be prioritized to buy cyber cabs down the road, or not, because they're going to go out of business if not? Thanks.
Will Lyft be prioritized by? What do you mean cyber? What do you mean?
Yeah, so they can stay in business. My wife brought this up. They've got fairly large market caps and investment in those companies, and when Robotaxi comes out, they're going to go out of business if they don't have the same capabilities. So are they going to be given priority to purchase cyber cabs to run under?
Well, when you say cyber cab, I'm thinking of Tesla's Robotaxi.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah,
they're only going to run on Tesla's network.
okay.
But Tesla
So
isn't going to be selling them to Uber or Lyft.
Gotcha. Yeah. So they're going out of business. Thank you.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Going to be tough cost per
Because,
mile.
well, I mean, others are also trying the same thing. So I guess we'll have to see. But there's a lot of people who are in agreement with you that Uber and Lyft will go out of business when Tesla starts its Robotaxi network. And I just don't think things happen overnight. Uber today is worth $150 billion. People, if there's one thing I learned in the last 2 years, is that people take their time to adjust their behavior. Jimmy.
There's a place for Uber, especially in states that will say, hey, we don't want self-driving, we want normal cars, and that's how Uber will survive for a while.
Uzi.
If Uber isn't buying robotaxis, then their independent contractors have to buy Teslas for that, and it just seems like overkill because you have a person there who's ferrying them. So it doesn't really make sense. And then you also consider Waymo. Why aren't they buying Waymos? They're not.
Well, they're supposed to be having a deal with in Austin. They're supposed to have Waymo on their network, so that's TBD. Humanities, when do you think the first Robotaxi paid commercial ride will happen?
I think it's going to be a little longer than most people think, and the reason for that is this has to be near perfect. If you guys can all imagine, if there's a fatal accident, it's going to be catastrophic. So it has to be near perfect. I'm thinking 99.99, which is I think years out, but I do see it 100% happening.
So can you give me a specific answer?
I think I did the other day. I think I said June of 27 or something like that.
Okay, Edward thinks it's sooner. Edward, when do you think?
Yeah, the first paid, I would say mid next year, probably June of next year. That's my prediction on that.
Okay.
But they have to transition it first because it'll probably be drivers in the Teslas, right? It's not in the Robotaxi car, not in the Cybercab, but in the regular one, right?
Yeah, Edward, do we have a coffee bet on that? Because I disagree with you. I think it's going to be later than that. And I'm happy to do a coffee bet
Yeah,
with
that's
you.
fine. Absolutely. I'd say June 1st, 2025. Correct.
I'm sorry. I
Okay.
meant June of 26, not 27. 26.
No,
2 years.
no, I got you. Okay, I got you. This is between me and Edward. I want to make some coffee bets with Edward going forward. Edward, June 1, 2025. I'll give you up to then and before, and then I'll take after June 1, 2025. So while I type that up.
I'm sorry. Does that count as like a driver being in the vehicle, like me taking my car to take people around?
No.
Even though it does it, or just solely on itself? Okay.
Yeah, driverless. You want to adjust your timeline?
No, that's fine. I'll still take that bet. It's a high possibility still.
Okay. How about I give you until the end of 2025, and I'll take after 2025. Okay.
Deal.
Jimmy.
Who wants to do a side bet that Omar will be the first person in that Robotaxi cab?
Omar, what do you think?
Probably not, but I hope so.
It has to be a public ride. It can't be like, well, Elon arrived in it. It's got to be like nobody part of the company. It's you, buddy, and Machine's mom. I would pay. I'd actually put $1,000 on that. You and Machine's mom.
All right. I think Machine's mom jokes tripled in 2022.
Wish I had bought call options on those.
Yes, seriously. Man, she is the most popular mom at this point in the world. Wessex? Not in that sense.
Yaman, can you give us an update regarding your Patreons? Are you still doing something after this space, and just kind of what activity that you're involved with?
Yeah, I publish a summary of each space, somewhere between 5 to 10 bullet points after every space. And over the weekends, I publish a Tesla Weekly for Tesla patrons and above. And then for Value patrons and above, I also do a macro weekly and some macro articles every now and then. I think it's extremely undervalued, but I think most people, just by human nature, want some free content, and they don't really want to pay up. So it's fine. It is what it is. But I appreciate my patrons. Without my patrons, there's no way this space would be happening. And so I wish that more people agree with that. It is what it is. All right. Any other questions, comments? Please request to speak. We have 5 minutes to go. 5 minutes to go. Any questions? Please request to speak. Alex, what's on your radar these days?
Not much. Just looking at the stock skyrocket. It's fun. It's been a while. We've been waiting for it. There's the Tornado case. Looking at that. What else? Earnings happening soon. And then we have a whole bunch of things beginning of August. We got 8.8, of course, and we got probably a Starship launch, Flight 5. So really looking forward to that. It's going to be like the next couple of weeks, next 3 weeks are going to be like pretty amazing.
Did anything come from the case yesterday?
Well, we had some snippets about what lawyers like said in their oral arguments, but we didn't have there's not going to be probably a decision on, because now there's basically, we finished this oral argument on July 8th, and there's going to be another one scheduled for the end of the July, beginning of August, on what it means that we ratified and we passed Elon's comp package like the second time regarding to the case. And I don't think she's going to give her opinion on any of these two things, the lawyer fees, the attorney fees, and the ratification. I think she'll give it all in one go. She's not gonna, so we're not gonna know anything. Don't count on anything before maybe end of August or something like that, I would say. So yeah, it's fun to see how it progresses, but all the documents have been filed, so that's already been posted on X, and everything that happens inside the courtroom in terms of oral arguments, we'll get little snippets, but nothing concrete. Basically, it's basically the same thing. They're just pleading it out orally. It's not like they not put it on paper in their motions and then surprise the court with a new argument during oral arguments. They just debated, and the judge asked questions and things like that, and they answer basically.
Thank you. Daniel?
Hi. I was wondering, so it's clearly the case that Tesla has huge advantage when it comes to FSD, and the approach is very hard to catch up to. Do you see any avenue from a technology perspective where you can just kind of skip the entire training process in a way where it would, Tesla would be able to be disrupted? Because currently it just seems so impossible, and they'll build a huge monopoly. Yeah, I wonder what you think about
Omar?
that.
I mean, any company can be disrupted, but what really helps is if you just have a really high rate of innovation, you just have a really high speed. You look at the EV market, for example, Tesla was a pioneer. They brought good EVs to the market before anyone else. Now everybody and their mom is making EVs. People are losing money, dumping them on the market, offering tons of incentives. But Tesla's already now focusing on AI and robotics, while the EV business continues to do pretty well. So people will always follow you, especially if you're a leader. People start to look at you and they start to want to do what you're doing. They start to want to copy you. But as long as you're just faster, more innovative than everyone else, then you can stay ahead of the competition.
Uzi?
I think that it really holds true. People try to copy you with FSD. That's not going to change that much. It's sort of driving, and it may make some economic efficiencies. But with the humanoid robots, I think that might change our way of life completely. And seeing past that event horizon is hard with such availability of labor.
Jimmy?
Does anyone ever remember MySpace or Friendster? Yeah, they were surpassed. Remember, everyone thought they were awesome. They could never catch up, and now we don't even use those platforms.
Yeah. All right. Another thank you to the patrons who support the space and everyone who replied to the posts. I see who you are. I know who you are, and I won't forget your support. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody. Chat tomorrow.